What's up, everybody? How we doing? It's a hot one. Hot. Here in good old Charlotte, North Carolina. We got some rain just a little bit ago and it actually cooled it off. When I parked my car after lunch, it said like 101, something like that. And now it's reading 86, so the rain did cool some things off a little bit. But we're not here to talk about the weather. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm a Lampy. And here is episode 2, potentially, of Lampy Ramblings. Is the name that I threw out in the last one, and I liked it. And you know what? I'm going to use it. So, Lampy Ramblings, episode 2. Here's some updates, or an update rather. And it's going to be a little bit of, or mainly all of the discussion of this particular video, is we just did a new stage design at Ballantyne. And those are always a big deal. There's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of logistics, there's potentially new gear purchase, there's rigging to think about, there's cable management, how are we going to get power and data to everything, making sure it makes sense and that we're accounting for, you know, all of the things that we need to think about, plus make sure people are there to help us do it. And we always have to walk in, particularly if we're going to ask people to be a part of it. We got to walk in with a plan and have a good idea of what we're going to do, so that we're efficient, we're not wasting anybody's time, and that we can knock this thing out. So, but yeah, we put in a new stage design. This last Sunday was the first weekend with it live, and I kind of want to just talk about that process and what went into the design, kind of the driver of a lot of it. And I might actually even edit this video and drop in some like just little tidbits of even the inspiration behind it. A lot of, if not most of my designs are kind of inspired by something to a degree. But this one in particular had a little bit more of a an inspiration, like almost not really spiritual, but more of like a very intentional inspiration behind it, though. So I originally just called it Windows, and because originally it was the bigger center screen and then like two smaller 16:9 landscape screens on either side, and it was just called Windows because I was like, I kind of want like this like Windows, and then I was like, well, let me just throw a bunch of Septrons at it as like those are the blinds. So it just became this like Windows and blinds, you know, sort of language. But regardless, and then we had some feedback, and we ultimately went with a big center screen and then the two longer portrait screens on either side, and then still with the Septrons. We actually still have a few more, quite a bit of more Septrons to add up top, but we just were waiting on some hardware to come in. But so the name was just Windows and Blinds, which sounds really lame. So I went on ChatGPT and I was like, hey, just give me some different ways of saying Windows and Blinds, and out came a couple of words based on just some stuff some promptings that I put in, and Funestra, which is Latin for windows, and then Louvera is Latin for blinds. I think it's actually a made-up word. I don't know if it's actually Latin. I was like, wow, that's really cool. Like Funestra Louvera, it just sounds better than windows and blinds. So this one is called Funestra Louvera. That's the name of the stage design. And the heart behind it of, it's not just us, you know, I don't like to necessarily approach a stage design and go, oh, we're just throwing lights around. Sometimes you got to do that. But this one was, I get to sit in our worship experience and I'm on the technical side, but the displays and the stuff that we put up on our stage, that we put up on our screens, they're like windows into the impact of our church and the things that our church is involved in. And I get to see videos that our creative team makes, and it really helps remind me that it ain't just lights, it ain't just audio, it ain't just video, it ain't just, you know, hitting a go button or pushing up faders. It's like, no, this has very real and very tangible and long-lasting and eternal impact. And we're creating these sort of windows into seeing the impact we're having outside of those four walls that we're currently sitting in. And then the Septron just kind of reminded me of blinds. So this idea of like windows and blinds, we're kind of peeking through and seeing, you know, what our impact is. So that's sort of the heart behind the stage design, and that really drove a lot of the creative elements of what we're gonna do with the screens, where we're putting them, and just the overall amount of Septrons that we're putting in the rig. And that really became the upstage portion of it. And I didn't want it to be really, as you know, I didn't want it to be like super symmetrical and super like, oh, vertical and horizontal, like, you know, like we're just taking it. Like I want it to be a little bit abstract, kind of mirrored, but just a little bit kind of breaking it up. Some of that is just spreading everything out, but which added complexity on the cabling side. So the power ports that we use to drive the Septrons, they've got 4 outputs. The Septrons we have, we can basically drive on one output. We can drive 10 of those, so we can do 40 on one power port. And so I put one on each side, so I'm like, that gives me 80. So let me try to make 80 work, and that makes, you know, make it look really clean. And it's like, well, we gotta rig this stuff up. And so we ended up doing a pipe grid, and then something that I'm not saying it's right or wrong, and I'm not saying that if you do it, you know, this is really purely subjective, and it's something that I don't love to do, is lighting a curtain. I would much rather put something in front of it. If you have to light it to get depth or to get something, do that. Do what you need to do. But for the longest time, we have been doing that as well. But I really, for this one, I didn't want to have to do that, which meant my 660s that I was currently lighting the stage, or lighting the curtain, were in use. And so I said, well, instead of just having Septrons, I also want to be able to sprinkle these 660s in, and create this nice, you know, push, this nice bright, you know, source that I can have as texture behind, but also be able to get really bright with it. The other thing that I've been really leaning into from a programming standpoint is bit mapping, is really paying attention to my selection grid, creating a lot of groups that really cater to being able to create symmetrical, or really using the whole rig in its entirety, not just, oh, I'm using my spots and for this, and I'm using my quantums for this, and then I'm using my other lights. No, I want to build these layout views so I can have a selection grid that takes the entire rig into account, and I can do a color wash across the whole, or a color phaser, or a dimmer phaser across the whole thing. And now I no longer just have these like kind of pockets of effects. I have the entire rig doing one thing. And that's something new to me. It's not new. It's not a new style, but to me, that's a relatively new thing that MA3 has made incredibly easy to do. The other piece that I wanted to really lean into and take advantage of was bit mapping, and that came out in version 2. So on top of all my selection grid stuff that I'm being very intentional about building, but also saying, okay, what fixtures take bit mapping really well, take video really well. Let me take those fixtures and put them in a place where I can have a really great coverage of if I wanted to throw bitmapping at the whole thing. And so far, we did it a little bit this past Sunday, but this coming Sunday, there's a couple of songs where most all the wash fixtures are taking video, are taking the Resolume feed, visuals from Resolume, and I'm just applying them to the rig. And you can't do that with all visuals. The visuals that we're using this weekend really work well for that. And today's Wednesday. We just came out of what's called our Weekender, which is basically a midweek. It's a rehearsal. It's a full-on like dress rehearsal, lighting, audio. It's a full band, lyrics. You know, we had some people jump on cameras. We capture it and we send it out to the campuses so they can see what we're doing. So I've already pretty well programmed for the weekend, aside from some changes and some, you know, based on feedback on what we want to change to make sure that Sunday is ready to go and is the best it possibly can. And I'm really, really excited about what we're doing with not only visuals, but also how those visuals can translate, and we can continue to marry the lighting and video together when it makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. And so I'm really excited about that. But yeah, the other part that sort of drove a lot of the design is bitmapping. So I've got what was the cause and effect of that? What did you do? Well, we have these 155s, Showline 155 zooms. It's a manual zoom. It's not a motorized zoom or anything. But what I did is I wanted them to basically be a big low res, like kind of wash source that I can use to wash, but also that I can use to do, again, bitmapping across. So they're basically wide as wide angle as they'll go and pointed straight out at the crowd. So that does a couple of things. One, it gives me a really high dynamic range from a brightness standpoint. I think like 5-10% is like looking good, and then which gives me basically 85 to 90% to really punch up and make that pop when I want to. And they look nice because they're also circles. Those look nice with the 660s. And something that's different from we constantly will tweak the design. So something that's different from last week that we added for this week is there was kind of this gap right at basically head height that I was like, man, we gotta put something there. And what we ended up doing, I had a couple of 640s, which is the little brother to the 660s. I had two of those sitting, and I just hung a pipe, put it right in that gap, and it looks like it's supposed to be there. Probably because it is. It's a gap. I mean, it's a very obvious gap. So, and then I got the mapping all in. So that's a little bit of a different from Sunday to Sunday. So leveraging the 155s and the 660s, they're all circles, so they all have kind of a uniform look. The solos, which I've had up above before, but what I wanted to do is I didn't want them to follow the truss. I wanted them to be perpendicular. And so what we had to do is add a couple of cheese burrows, add a 3-foot pipe, and now we can just hang them perpendicular on the truss, which now I have this continuation of this horizontal look that goes not only is it on the upstage, but it also continues up above. That I think looks really nice. And the solo battens are a square lens, not a circle lens. So as far as the camera is concerned, it's not seeing any different shapes. But if you look above, you'll see them obviously, but they're kind of on their own. And the quantum washes are up there, so you have circles and squares, but it's a little bit, rarely are you actually looking up and seeing that come across on iMag or even down on the stream. And it creates a really nice general wash on the downstage. so do the, and coupled that with the quantum washes. I was really worried because on the last design, I had the quantum washes in a place where I could really put them out into the crowd and have this really big look that basically washed the cameras out when I wanted to, and it gave this really big, impactful look. I was really worried that I would kind of lose that, and I haven't really. I can still really get the stage bright when I need to, but what's nice is the quantums above. When I kick them out into the crowd, it creates this really big look above that lights the whole room up, and it looks really nice. I'm really happy with it. But those are providing really soft hair light, and along with the solos, it kind of creates this very soft, but when it necessary, because the quantums can zoom down, I have best of both worlds. I can have beamy looks coming down, but I can also have really nice washy looks coming down. Trying to think of anything else. Those kind of really drove the design. I wanted to add more Diablos to this one because we had a ground package of Diablos coming out of Easter, made some design changes, and we just they just weren't part of the design. And so when we shifted the design, there just wasn't a place for them that made sense in the way the band and the upstage was configured. So we just put those on the back burner, knowing this stage design was coming up, and that, going from, I think I had maybe 12 or 14 in the rig, up to now back up to 20, and I actually just put in all 24 in the rig. Something that I had in the last one, because I was actually doing a review of American DJ hybrid spot. I think it's called a hybrid fixture. It's an American DJ hybrid fixture, and I was doing a review of it, and they sent me 2, and so I was able to really use those to light the band and light the choir. So we have 24 Diablos. I had 20 in the rig. I took the other 4 and I put them up above, and they're doing all of my band light. I also have choir, so when the choir is on, they're getting like a really nice top key-ish, top fill, that I can do color, I can do gobos, I can do an animation wheel, I can give some texture. So I'm actually really looking forward. I'm using some of that this weekend. I'm really looking forward to all of the different design possibilities that are going to come with those. But also, they're super wide. Like, they have a really wide throw, so I can basically wash that entire upstage with a nice key, top hair light. So I'm just kind of curious, as this, as the stage design ages, what the life cycle is like and what we're going to be able to get out of it. But overall, I'm really happy with it. A new addition that we're going to make some tweaks to in the coming probably month or so. We added back these side lights that we used to have with ladders, but we wanted to add a little bit more to them. We added Septrons onto them, and we added fixtures. We added 155s on the side, and they're just kind of really, all they're doing is adding something into the camera, but they're not quite as far down as we would like. So we have to reinforce the rigging up top to be able to get down basically 30 feet, and be able to take it's not a lot of weight, but the weight is just so far down from the rig point, that you just got to rig it appropriately and make sure it's going to be safe, but also make sure it's not going to like tilt so far out that it looks weird. But so far we've been using it, and I've been really happy with just the light that they provide, but also just the continuation along the sides of the stage that the lights kind of help wrap around. So a few tweaks there, but yeah, that's Funestra Louvera. That's the new stage design here at Ballantyne, and not here at Ballantyne, I'm in my car. But yeah, check it out on Sunday. Super happy with it. again, we're just constantly tweaking, and we're always be trying to make it better, and always trying to improve. So if you have any questions, particularly about the gear we use, if you have any questions about like design processes or programming decisions, design decisions, even tools that we use to design them, drop it in the comments. And also, like these Lampy ramblings, if there's any specific thing that you'd like me to just kind of ramble on. I got a lot of opinions and a lot of thoughts about a lot of things in the industry, a lot of things in the church world, and just drop it in the comments, and we'll see if we can't talk about it a little bit. But anyway, 485 is starting to pick up a little bit. But anyway, bye everybody.